the Becoming You show, where limits get torched and possibility takes the mic. I'm Leah Rowling, human in permanent beta, neurostrategist, mom to 3 amazing humans, married to 1 legendary soul, and your no fluff permission slip to stop waiting. Every week, we rewire brain patterns, smash hand-me-down mindsets, and dive into the daring, identity-shifting conversations most people dodge. Ready to turn potential into proof? Grab your pen. Your next chapter starts now. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Becoming You show. I am your host, Leah Rowling, and today you're about to hear a conversation that will challenge the way that you think about fitness, motivation, discipline, and really the relationship between your brain and the body that you're living in. My guest is someone who has been disrupting the industry long before biohacking and optimization or habit stacking were trends. PJ Glassey began personal training, I think, 1987.
Yeah.
He spent years inside people's homes and inside the real psychology of change. I so much enjoyed our conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, he must be on this show. And what he saw in that was that led him to build something what I think is pretty uncommon, a fitness method designed around the brain, not just the body. Most of us talk about, when we talk about fitness, obviously, we talk about physical soreness, and we don't really talk about psychological soreness or hacks of the mind, right? You're a founder of X Gym, home of the famous 21-minute workout, which I cannot wait to unpack for you guys today. You've just transformed thousands of lives. You're an author of Cracking Your Calorie Code, and the creator of the brain type test. So this conversation is fast, it's deep, and it's going to give you a new way of seeing possibility in your body, in your identity, and your life. So PJ, I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Wow. You're the intro queen. I think that's the best intro I've ever had. You've really done your research. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Leah.
So good, so good. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. I find that people who innovate rarely set out to innovate, right? They set out to solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
That they just can't ignore. So take us back to, 1987. I think that was the date you had mentioned. What did you see in those early years that made you kind of rethink the traditional fitness model and has brought you to this moment in time?
Yeah, it was mostly about time. So it's about how much time it takes to do traditional training.
Yeah.
So I was a personal trainer actually before 87, just, with friends and things. But I got my first job that year at a gym. And a lot of people were there, and it was great training them and working with them. And I was also doing traditional training on myself at that time. And then I was just kind of talking with people and interviewing. And the thing that they were annoyed with the most, and what kept them from having it be really sustainable, was the time required to do traditional training. And I think it was that year that I was learning about the history of exercise and traditional training, because I was getting my degree in exercise science at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned about Eugene Sandow, who's the father of sets and reps, traditional training. And he was a famous European strongman that came over from Europe. And he was, making a lot of money with the strongman shows. And he was really buffed. And the men back in the late 1800s weren't very buffed. And they wanted to get buffed like Eugene. So at first he said, no, I'm not going to tell you my secrets, because he was making so much money in strongman shows and he didn't want as much competition or more competition. And so, because there wasn't really that much at the time. And so they finally kind of wore him down over time, because, he was money based and he came over to make money. And they said, well, we're going to pay you. And so here's how you can, sell your methodology. And so he finally caved and made a lot of money selling sets and reps. And that's when it was born back in 1891.
And
And
it
so I was
still is
thinking,
existing today. We don't,
that's
right? We
what
don't
I
even
was
question it.
I know. And I am a very questioning brain and I question everything. It's got
Yes.
me in a lot of trouble over the years, but
Yes.
it's also came up with some, helped me come up with some pretty innovative things. And so that's the question I was asking. Well, we're not still driving cars from 1891. So why are we still doing that kind of training?
Ah,
And so I first goal was to set out and develop something based on the recent research because in the 80s, it was pretty new to do research in exercise science. There really
mhm,
wasn't much out, but it was coming out pretty fast. And so I just dove into that and was reading and experimenting. And then when I graduated in 89, I was a personal trainer mostly out of people's homes. And so they turned into my guinea pigs for all my experiments based on the research I was reading to try to come up with a methodology that took less time.
mhm,
And while I was training them, they were also complaining that traditional training caused injuries. And that was annoying. And
mhm,
they were also complaining that traditional training bulked them up. And of course, it did because that's what it was designed for by Eugene Sandow. But most of these people didn't want to get bulky. They wanted to be toned and they
mhm.
wanted to be strong, but they didn't want to be huge.
Yes.
And so I added those to my list and then took me 11 years. But 11 years later, with lots of experiments and research, I came up with a methodology that makes people functionally stronger and fitter, gives them toning and definition versus bulking, and takes way less time. 21 minutes twice a week is equivalent to about 7 hours of traditional training. So huge hacks in all of those three things. And then I opened the X Gym in 98. And then, the rest is history. We've moved, expanded, and grown. And now we do a ton of online training and we have an app and we have a brain type test and all sorts of things have happened along the way to
Oh,
create what we have now.
okay. So I want to get into the brain type for sure, but
Hmm.
I can't, I have to go back because I
Yeah.
know my listeners are like, wait a second,
Hmm.
hold on just a hot second here. So I can have a leaner, more toned body in less time with less injury. You
Hmm.
can't just leave me hanging. So can
Yeah.
you give us any insights on what that looks like or exactly where to go to
Hmm.
connect with you in order to get this system, these
Yeah.
tools. Yeah.
Well, I may be your easiest guest to find ever because you just go to xgym.com and it's all right there. So the brain type test is down at the bottom of the thing and the homepage and up at the top. You have the different options of online training and the app and the live training at the Kirkland gym and all sorts of things. So that's where all the information is, xgym.com.
Okay. Got it.
And yeah, so the secret sauce, and I don't mind giving it away, I just love
Ooh.
telling people about it, is time under tension and
Mm,
getting to complete muscle fatigue. So if you're staying in the contraction
mhm.
until it
Explain that.
burns,
Explain that. Like
yeah. Uh,
when is the contract? Like most people know a squat.
yeah.
Okay. So
So let's
tell
take
them
that
what that.
one.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just describe a squat. So we have 7 different methods, but one of the methods that we have is slow motion. They're all
Okay.
very controlled motion and they all keep you in contraction the entire time. So what I mean by that is in a squat, you're going to start at the bottom of the range and everybody's different. Everybody has a different low point, but you just find your low point and that's the sweet spot. So then you're going to go slow out of that low point and 7 to 10 seconds to get to the top. But the top is not straight legs like it is with traditional training. It's only 2/3 of the way up. So you're still squatting at the top. You're not all the
Hmm.
way up because you want your quads to be contracting at the top and not getting any rest. Then you head back down to 7 to 10 seconds to get to the bottom. And then you pause down there for a couple seconds because that's where you're getting quads and glutes. So it's more well rounded down there. And then you start really slow out of the bottom, 7 to 10 seconds to that low top. And you keep going until you fail. And
Hmm.
the failure is going to happen on the way up, the concentric phase of the contraction, because you're stronger on the eccentric than concentric. So you're going to fail on the weak phase
Hmm.
on the way up. And then failure looks like getting stuck. And you're keeping good form, right? So it's
Uh-huh.
perfect form the whole time. So you're never cheating to try to get another rep. Reps don't even really matter. It's
Oh,
the time and
no.
the attention that matters.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't even count reps.
Right.
Doesn't matter. So we're just keeping perfect form until we fail because that's the goal. And when you fail, you get stuck. And
Mhm.
then we keep going we start with pulses. And then you can pulse until you can't pulse. And then maybe we'll do a hold. There's 30 different splinters that we can use. But what I tell people is just these two. So you pulse until you can't pulse, and then you hold until you can't hold. So a lot of people will do this over a stool, like a low stool or a low chair. So when they can't hold anymore, that's gravity sucking them down against their will. They're still in
Mhm.
perfect form until they get down to that stool or low chair that's spotting them so they don't end up on the ground, which is okay too. But nobody wants to fall over, right? It's a slow fall if it does happen. but that's kind
Everybody.
of a good description of how you're using time under tension, which gives you endurance, but it's
Mhm.
the means to the end, which is failure at the end, which gives you strength. So now you're doing both things at the same time. And the reason failure is so important is because when the muscle fails, only then does it see a need for change
Yep.
because it couldn't do it. But if you go and do your sets and reps or just one set without failing at the end, then the last rep, the muscle could do it. It still had fuel left. And so the muscle cell says, oh, yeah, I could do that. I'm good. No need to change. And it won't. But if you fail and empty it out and make it run out of fuel, then it says, whoa, I ran out. I wasn't able to do that. I failed. I'd better change. And so then you're sending the message to that fiber. And then going as long as you can gets more fibers involved and sends, you can never get 100% of your muscle fibers fatigued,
Mhm.
but you can certainly get more than traditional training
Yeah.
fatigued with this time under tension to complete muscle fatigue principle.
I it's I mean, traditional, like, even just lifting, I want us to all think about, last time we went to the gym, we probably just picked up some weights, the
Hmm.
the pounds, there was probably no consideration, and we just, 15 biceps, and we just did 10 reps, and
Yeah.
we lifted and we lowered and we lifted and we lowered and we lifted and we lowered, right? And then we
Hmm.
just put
Hmm.
them on the ground and we checked a box,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We drove ourselves all the way to the gym.
Yeah.
We worked out for 45 minutes. We
Hmm.
drove ourselves all the way back home. It's no
Hmm.
wonder there's such frustration
Hmm.
when it comes around when it comes to not making as much progress.
Yeah.
I mean, that time compromise. I mean, and the other thing that I love about this, and then we will get to the brain, is this idea that failure is required,
Hmm.
right? I wonder how much of that is hard for humans as a whole
Hmm.
to accept because we've been taught our whole life not to,
Yep.
from schools to business, to just don't fail, just do whatever
Yep.
whatever whatever, just don't fail.
Yeah.
And this is actually an invitation to
Hmm.
do so on purpose. And I
Yeah.
know the coaching work that we do
Hmm.
is that's the way you get strong.
Hmm.
That's the way that you learn, that's the way that you grow, that's the way that you expand your capacity,
Hmm.
is to fail. That is the way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. So I love it. I love it. I love it.
Well, in all of life too. I mean,
Yes.
they surveyed the most successful CEOs of the largest companies, and on average, they have had catastrophic life failures 3.5 times
Mm,
before they got to where their huge success hit them.
yeah.
So they're not trying to avoid failure or risk. And
Right.
it's really the same kind of principle. I mean, if with life, but with also with exercise and this principle.
Yes. Yes. I So I love it. I love it. I want to shift gears just to cuz this brain-based fitness and this test that you have, because people think that their fitness problem is physical, right?
Mhm.
Um but in my work, and I know in your work, it's almost always cognitive,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
brain is the CEO of the body, and
Yeah.
yet most people treat it like an intern,
Hmm.
right? So what
Exactly.
do you believe the biggest misconception people have about the brain's role in whether it's motivation, discipline, and or fitness?
Yeah. Well, what most people don't realize is the brain is in control of us. Specifically, the subconscious brain is the part of the brain that's in control of us. And the subconscious operates at about the level of a 3-year-old. So our inner toddler is in charge.
That's what I
And
say all the time. We're just a bunch of 2-year-olds throwing sippy cups around, right?
exactly, exactly. And toddlers love the status quo and they hate change and they don't like discomfort. And so, luckily, we have a parent part of our brain that separates us from all the other animals. It's the prefrontal cortex. And other animals have that, but we have a way bigger one. And the
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex is our CEO, like you mentioned. It's
Mhm.
the CEO part of the brain where we can make good decisions. We can look into the future, simulate scenarios, things like that. Well, that part of the brain can train the toddler. And luckily, anything that works on a toddler also works on our subconscious. So, if we know how to train our toddler, and that's what the brain type test is about, then we know how to get that toddler to cooperate with us instead of fighting us by fighting for the status quo, by fighting for comfort, and all those things that will sabotage us along the way.
Mhm. Yeah. So is that why um like two people can follow the exact same plan and
Hmm.
different get different results? Like this brain type test could possibly explain why
Hmm.
and maybe even essentially give people a user manual for their own
Yeah,
brain.
totally.
Ah,
Yeah, and that's really where it comes down to. There's 16 different brain types. I tried to boil it down to less, just to,
mhm.
make it less complicated or whatever. I don't know why I wanted to do that, but I couldn't do it.
Because we're simple beings.
Yeah.
I
Because there's
appreciate the effort, but at some
yeah,
time the
I
work then
know.
becomes insufficient.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And so the brain type test determines which of the 16 they are, and then it gives them specific things they can do, and
mm,
it's geared toward health and fitness, but it gives them specific things they can do in brain training exercises to literally rewire their brain, to rewire their toddler, so the toddler is helping them instead of fighting against them.
mm,
And when most people set out to change their body, like, all the New Year's resolutionaries every year,
mhm,
then and some of them succeed, few of them do, but some of them succeed. But then they get into this diet yo-yo thing and they gain the weight back and they go, what the heck happened? And it's almost subconscious because it is. And
mhm,
so what if they change their brain as they're changing their body, then they don't have that tension between the brain and the body. And they don't have the yo yo that snaps them back down to the brain level after
mhm,
they've made physical progress. They make the same progress along the way. So their brain is changing with their body. Therefore, they're literally becoming a new person and adopting a new identity, creating a new identity.
mhm,
And that's what creates the permanent results
mhm,
where they get stuck that way in a good way because their identity and their brain have both changed along with their body.
mhm, mm. I can about imagine. I'd love to see if you have just a quick example of where this has showed up. But I, I'm envisioning. I have three boys.
Hmm.
Most of my listeners know this, and and if our brain is a child too that needs parented, uh,
Hmm.
if I were to parent Logan and Levi and Max the same way, I'd be
Hmm.
screwed,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like
totally.
Logan needs a different mom. Levi
Hmm.
needs a different mom. Max
Hmm.
needs a different mom. And my brain needs a different mom.
Yeah.
And this test will help me explore what kind of mom
Hmm.
my brain needs.
Hmm.
So can you give us an example of what a scenario would be, one of the 16 different type scenarios would be that would kind of make this a little bit more accessible for our audience?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on, well, it totally depends on the person. And, there's introverted and there's extroverted, and there's lots of different aspects to a brain. And the brain type test also explains all that. But a good example would just be my wife and I. I mean, we're completely opposites and we have opposite brain types and everything. And so she is going to have motivation. She's going to find motivation differently than I am.
Mhm,
She is more of an extrovert. And so she's going to want to have a partner with her in
Mhm.
her journey, in her fitness journey. I am more of an introvert, and so I could do it alone. But we're all social animals, and so we all need other people and their help. We can
Mhm.
never do everything alone, but there's just the preferences change. And so as far as fitness goes, she needs to be around more people, and she has to have an accountability person and workout buddy or variety. She's more into variety, so she does YouTubes a lot, and she'll mix it up almost
Yeah.
every time. She doesn't like to do the same workout over and over. Whereas somebody like me, more introverted, can do it. We're fine with doing the same workout
Yeah.
over and over. But the brain type test explains all this stuff, and also how she's motivated differently than me, but more importantly, how she would be able to develop discipline differently
Mhm.
than me,
Mhm.
because motivation is fine to get us started, but it's lousy to keep us going.
1000%.
That's where discipline sets in. So
Mhm.
it's about how she would form habits versus how I would form habits. So a good habit forming technique for me would be the trigger technique, where I am going to set something out on the counter or by the door to trigger me and remind me to do a certain thing, fitness thing or health thing, to and then do it.
Mhm.
I need that trigger. But
Mhm.
she would have another technique that would work better for her because the trigger wouldn't work. It would just annoy her. She'd see a trigger and she'd go, "Oh, brother," and then just move on. So yeah, and then journaling. So somebody, I hate journaling, but another brain type, they have to do it.
Mhm.
And there's just or the tapping technique, the EFT technique,
Yep.
is effective for actually 12 of the 16 brain types because it's so powerful. But four of them, nope, they're going to hate it. So it
Uh-huh.
just depends, and as a trainer, if I'm telling somebody a certain technique that I think is fantastic because it works for me,
Yes.
but then it doesn't for them, they're going to get super frustrated. So I need to find out ahead of time what's going to work for them to minimize their frustration and maximize their success.
Mm. I love it. It's so good. It's so good. I hope all of you guys run and take this test now to help support you in your goals. Not just when the new year hits, but like today, friends. We're not
Mhm.
waiting. We're not a listenership that waits. We get after it. As you were talking, I was thinking about, I would say 99% of my clients would call themselves high achieving. Like
Mhm.
they're high achievers. They love intensity. They love outworking
Mhm.
their problems.
Mhm.
Um, and I think sometimes that outworking finds themselves in the gym, doing more, hustling more. Do you find resistance to the adoption of this 21-minute routine regimen because it's not in their minds not enough?
Yes, and that's why we offer the free intro so people can feel
Yeah.
it for themselves and
Yes.
realize it's plenty.
Plenty. If
Yeah,
you do it right, it's plenty.
yeah.
We talked about this. I used to be a personal trainer. I've got an exercise science degree. We had so
Mhm.
much fun in our conversation. I wish we could
Mhm.
have them on longer.
Mhm.
But if you do a sit up right, and I don't even
Mhm.
love sit ups as a way to strengthen our core, but
Mhm.
if you do it right, you have one. You get to do
Mhm.
one. There's
Mhm.
one. No hundreds, no 50s, one sit up,
Mhm.
and you will have a hard time like laughing and coughing and
Yeah, right.
whatnot. But it's that principle
Yeah.
of that time under tension,
Mhm.
and really in either the eccentric or the concentric phase to
Yeah.
keep it under tension. I love
Right.
it. Love it.
Yeah, and
Um,
we're not for everybody, and we don't claim to be. We're just
mhm,
one of the great options out there.
mm,
I mentioned, my wife likes YouTubes. That's a great option. There's so many options. What I tell people is the most important thing is no matter what you do, just find something that fits you and then stick with it. And that's the most sustainable way. Maybe it is traditional training. Great. I'm not slamming it for everybody. I'm just saying this is another option. And we need options because we have different brain types. And
mhm,
just find your thing and then just stick with it and do it.
mm. I love it. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with? Any advice, any inspiration, any wisdom
Yeah.
from your decades of this work?
Yeah. I think it's get to know your toddler.
Mhm. Oh,
and be friends
ah,
with your toddler.
mhm.
You want to be a good parent to your toddler. So you don't want to, down talk it or be abusive or anything. You want to be, it's part of you. It always will be. And so you're training it in a loving way, and get to know it, and then train it how cooperate with you and get
Yes.
along.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. PJ, this has been incredibly rich. Thank you for bringing your depth, your
Mm-hmm.
science, your decades of experience to this conversation. For everyone listening, okay, PJ has generously offered his brain type test for,
Mm-hmm.
I think you said $1,
Yeah.
right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is unheard of. And it's the fastest way to understand your wiring. It's the fastest way to get to know your toddler,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And to have your toddler work for you instead of it working against you. We do not
Mm-hmm.
want toddlers working against us. If
Mm-hmm.
toddlers work against us, they will ruin your life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it'll help you tailor a path to sustainable results for you. And I think that's what both PJ and I want for you. So you'll
Yeah.
find a link in the show notes. Um, thank you. Thank you, PJ.
My pleasure.
Until next time,
Thank
my
you.
beautiful friends, stay
Yeah.
sparked, stay curious, and keep becoming the person capable of the life that you both want and deserve. Take care, everybody. Bye bye. If this episode cracked something open, good. Let it. And then head to leahrollingcoaching.com and grab the tools to rewire the story and reclaim your future. It is yours. And then share this with someone who's still waiting to be chosen, still waiting for permission, and remind them they don't need a breakthrough, that they are the breakthrough. Until next time, my beautiful friends, invest in you and keep becoming.